Now, what about 1 year leases? I heard another eviction attorney, and this speaks more to SB 1482. I heard one eviction attorney give the suggestion that you no longer want to offer 1 year leases. You want to offer maybe a 10-month lease or an 11-month lease so it doesn't automatically roll over their tenancy in terms of if the tenant should not vacate. What's your take on, a 10-month lease versus a 12-month lease? And at the end of that lease, can you ask at the end of the lease of the term, can you ask the tenant to vacate and not offer them the unit going forward so that essentially you can reopen it to market?
I am one of the attorneys who started counseling clients to do this exact same thing. Prior to SB 1482 coming out, I was reading the language saying, hey, they're capping this. It doesn't even kick in until the tenants have been there for a year. So let's start drafting 9-month leases. And I think it's a great idea right now. But what you can expect, and we've already seen it, is multiple cities now have come out and required a 1-year lease. So I believe West Hollywood requires a 1-year lease. I think Culver City is now requiring, don't quote me on Culver City, but I think it was Culver City that is now requiring a 1-year lease. So the great thing about landlords and landlord-tenant attorneys is they're generally very creative people and they want to operate within the law. And when they see what the law is, they start trying to figure out smart ways to protect their own interests. The problem is the cities and the state even come back later and they say, see, look what the landlords did. And there's two arguments they generally make. Every time we protect the tenants, the landlords find, and they always call it a loophole, right? And they say, look at these evil, greedy landlords that are doing this, et cetera. And it throws fuel on that fire. So like I said, there's two sides to every coin. I've definitely counseled clients to do it and it's worked. But at this point, we're getting to a point where in 2021, they're probably going to beef up SB 1482 significantly. They're probably going to, take into consideration things like that and change those provisions to either require a 1-year lease or take that down to the tenant has to have lived there for 6 months. So you need to be careful as a whole, as an industry, we need to be careful about how we approach things. And additionally, I would add to that, under SB 1482, currently, when you have to pay the tenant relocation fees, it amounts to 1 month's rent. And in the bigger picture of things, when we're sitting here, I'll say, self-reflecting on our actions and our behaviors with the thought that what I do reflects on the whole industry, and everything I do, if it's interpreted as being evil or greedy, is going to be countered by the tenants' rights organizations and countered up in Sacramento. When you look at the bigger picture of SB 1482 and that 1 month relocation fees, it might be just as easy for your clients to say, okay, I'm going to lose 1 month's rent, but I'm going to do it legally because I don't want them to continue restricting every single thing we do by changing the laws. So, like I said, I have mixed feelings about it. I've counseled clients to do it, but I'm also cautious as a whole industry that it'll come back to bite us by them taking that ability away from us. So we have to be careful about what we do.
Now, you alluded to the fact that come 2021, which is only a couple months away, laws like SB 1482 will be beefed up. And so the next question asks you to, make some predictions here. If you had to guess, what will the laws look like next year? I assume they're also speaking to, come this hard date of January 31st. Should we just assume all of a sudden, the courts are going to be open to all these evictions? I don't see that happening. I don't see them allowing, these mass amounts of evictions, right? And I imagine something new will be dreamed up at that point. But where do you think this is headed come next year?
First, let's start off with what looks promising right now. Both Pfizer and Fauci came out this week and are saying, Pfizer is saying we're going to start rolling out this vaccine by the end of the year. Fauci is saying we're going to have, everybody's going to have a vaccine possibly as early as April. And so that's the good news. The bad news is the COVID numbers continue to go up. And I agree with you 100%. it's unreasonable to believe that if these COVID numbers continue to go up, that all of a sudden they're just going to open the floodgates and let all of these evictions begin. First of all, let's unpack the evictions. Most of the evictions that are on hold right now, or the potential evictions that are on hold for non-payment of rent, most of those aren't going to just open up in a floodgate. AB 3088 talks about the repayment period, and many of the moratoriums, the current moratoriums, have a specific repayment period in there. And the argument will be, you can't file an unlawful detainer specifically for that unpaid rent because it's not even due yet. AB 3088, regardless of what the moratorium says, AB 3088 specifically preempts it here. And this is one of the few areas that it really preempts these moratoriums. It states that where a moratorium states, regardless of the start date, the repayment period can't start any later than March 1st of 2021. So to think that the floodgates are going to open on February 1st and all these evictions for non-payment of rent are going to occur is just ridiculous. It's not going to happen. Second, AB 3088 says, regardless of what the moratorium says, even if the moratorium says that the repayment period doesn't start until 6 months after the expiration of state of emergency, AB 3088 says, sorry, that doesn't apply. It starts March 1st, 2021, and it ends no later than March 31st, 2022. So it's giving a 13-month period to repay the unpaid rent that accrued. So again, if you file an eviction based on unpaid COVID rent, the first defense they're going to raise is that under the moratorium, if the moratorium has that sort of a repayment provision, under the moratorium, my rent wasn't even due, so the notice is premature. And I think that's going to hold water. I think the judges are going to agree with that. So you're not going to have a floodgate of evictions. Now, you might have a floodgate of evictions for other reasons coming after the new year, for other violations of the lease, et cetera. We'll see. But I agree with you. The courts are not going to allow just a mass wave of evictions. That's first. Second, if the COVID numbers continue to go up, what I anticipate seeing as far as legislation is concerned is one of two things, maybe three things. One, the governor will step in again and issue a new executive order that allows the municipalities to either create their own moratoriums, extend their existing moratoriums, or modify their existing moratoriums. Second, AB 3088 specifically preempts them from doing that right now, but only until February 1st. It's got a hard date in there. So after February 1st, even under current AB 3088, all of the municipalities can extend their moratoriums, they can create new moratoriums, they can modify their moratoriums. And if these numbers don't go down, you can bet it's going to happen. So, the argument by the tenants' rights groups that, oh, we're going to see this wave of evictions, not only is it unrealistic, it's AB 3088 is specifically built to avoid that. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and going back to the comments that were shared at our educational webinar, that's why there's a need, if you're a landlord that's experiencing some of this, to have cash reserves, because as of now, we just do not know when, if ever, you're going to be able to collect on these monies. And so if you need to be thinking about taking equity out and a cash out refinance or something, you want to be proactive and start looking at your finances.
I just want to add one more thing to these last couple of questions you asked me. COVID rent is defined as any rent that accrued between March 1st of 2020 and January 31st of 2021. So if everything stayed the same right now, what I could see happening is, as of February 1st, if the tenant continues to not pay rent, then it would be a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit, because we're not dealing with COVID rent at that point. I would anticipate that, like I said, the governor or the local municipalities would go in and change that, but that's currently how it's drafted. So right now, the money that landlords are losing, I don't want to seem like I'm downplaying it, but it's currently limited to that March 1st to January 31st date. Anything after that, right now, is fair game for a standard 3-day pay or quit after February 1st.